Live right here on the early line on Sports Grid. It is a Thursday. Yes, October baseball rolls on with a winner-take-all Game 3 between the Brewers and the Mets tonight in Milwaukee. But a Thursday also means the start of a new week around the National Football League. Week 5 kicks off in Atlanta between the Falcons and the Buccaneers in an NFC South Divisional showdown. Of course, we will preview TNF short week Thursday night football here in just a little bit. But one of the great things, DRS, about the way the NFL calendar works each and every week, when you get to Tuesday and Wednesday, speculation builds up. It's injury reports, it's practice reports, maybe it's trade rumors. That's the case now with Davante Adams, saying he prefers to be dealt from Las Vegas. Did let it be leaked yesterday what his preferred destinations are. It should be no surprise. New York, a reunion with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, or back with his best bud from his Fresno State days and early on in Las Vegas, Derek Carr in New Orleans. Here is the rumored and reported interest in Davante Adams. Just because he is listed as two preferred destinations does not mean that's all the Raiders are listening to at this moment. The Steelers were in the running for Brandon Ayuk. They're interested. The Cowboys, not so much. They also don't really have the money to pay Davante Adams' salary. Although it made a lot of sense for the Chiefs to be a reportedly interest team, they are not involved, not expected to be there. They're a divisional foe of Las Vegas. The Commanders, unknown, I guess, is what we're listing it as. DRS, what do you make of the speculation around Davante Adams?
Yeah, let's start here first with the Raiders. Coming into this season, it's re-signed Minshew and AOC is the other quarterback. They're going to battle it out in training camp. Let's see what happens here. And then you say you have Davante Adams at wide receiver. And we all thought that the Raiders would absolutely flat out stink this season. They're 2-2, and you know what? At the end of the season, they're going to flat out stink. But let's go back to what they had. They had their own form of the triplets. Jacobs in the backfield, Davante Adams at wide receiver with his best friend at quarterback, Derek Carr. I guarantee you, Ben, coming into this season, if that was still their trio, you'd be saying this. You know what? Chance the Raiders can make the playoffs here. Like what I'm saying, couple years under already, building that process. This is the way you handle it. Now it looks like all three are going to be gone, and they're going to be terrible. Now, as we say, where does he want to go? Of course, wide receivers, quarterbacks, cornerbacks, whatever it might be, they would love to pick where they go. But let's understand this. Davante Adams makes a lot of money on his contract right now. You know what happens where Davante goes? Yeah, I'm going to pick my team. I'm going to go to the Jets. And, Jets, by the way, when you trade me, you see how the other wide receivers are getting paid. I don't have any more guaranteed money left on my contract. Yes, it's like $35 million. Why don't you say you guarantee that and bump my number up even more than that? Who's going to want to pay for that? Oh, Davante Adams is 26 years old in his prime. No, he's in his 30s here, still in his prime, but how many more years does he have being effective, dominant, number one wide receiver? That's the first thing. And also, let's start with the New York Jets, where he actually wants to go to. It doesn't make any sense. Garrett Wilson was drafted to be your long-term number one option, and he's a quality wide receiver. So are we saying that Aaron Rodgers already put out, hey, look, I don't think Garrett can play football here. Let's bring in Mike Williams. I need another wide receiver on the opposite side. Might as well cut him loose too. You already brought in Alan Lazard and everybody else. It doesn't make sense. They're not one player away, the New York Jets. You know where they're one player away? Get some help on the offensive line. If the Jets instead of going, you know what, Davante, we're not going to spend money or trade for you. I'm going to go trade for two legitimate offensive linemen so my quarterback doesn't get beaten to a pulp on Sunday afternoons. How about that? So just starting with the Jets, it makes no sense to get Davante Adams on the Jets. Why would you do that?
But who wears the pants for Gang Green? Is it Robert Saleh, who backed off his cadence concern questions for the offense once Aaron Rodgers voiced his displeasure of his head coach's reaction to the disappointing and dreadful loss as more than a touchdown home favorite against Denver? No. Is it Woody Johnson, who is circulating everything and having to pay the paychecks of what they decide to do? No. I think it's Aaron Rodgers. So if Aaron Rodgers says, I'm not playing unless I get Davante Adams, they are going to try to get Davante Adams. And Aaron Rodgers, of course, is not going to question his availability for games. But DRS, if he is in there in the front office saying, with Joe Douglas, I want Davante, trade for Davante, they will at least consider it. Does New Orleans make some sense? Yes, just because of the reunion of Derek Carr. DRS, when you actually think of teams that need offensive pieces, Davante Adams is always an elevation. Pittsburgh, though, makes a ton of sense. Kansas City would make sense, again, if it were not a divisional foe. And Davante Adams still has it. 3 games this year, 18 total grabs, more than 200 yards and a touchdown, and that's with Gardner Minshew. In the Raiders' comeback in Baltimore week 2, it was these 2 guys, Minshew and Davante, that really spurred that Raiders offense on to lead the comeback. And to your point, DRS, first-year head coach Antonio Pierce, Vegas is 2-2, both straight up. And against the spread, the win total is 6.5. It's where it was before the season. It's where it remains with the juice on the over at minus 154. It's not like the Raiders have been so vastly disappointing that we have got to this point. I think it's just Davante Adams saying, hey, I could hope for better. This is not what I had agreed to when I came to Sin City. Ultimately, this is going to take some time. Davante Adams has a hamstring injury as the trade speculation has built up. The Raiders' bye is the opening weekend of November. When do you believe Davante Adams might actually be dealt?
But 2 things here. Let's get to Davante Adams, that hamstring injury. This sounds a lot more like we know he doesn't want to be here, wants to be traded ASAP. We got a team to still prepare for this weekend. And if he's not all in, we don't want him here. We don't want him to get injured here while we're trying to trade him. I don't know about this hamstring injury. Number 2, New Orleans here to be able to get him. Like, I don't know what, like, you know, funny money we play in here at this point. They're $90 million over the cap for next year. And you're going to get Davante Adams going to want a pay raise based on what he already makes. As Johnny Sack once said here, they're going to have to get more creative than Spielberg on this one to try to get Davante Adams in town. So I don't think he's going there. The team that makes the most sense to me right now, and I'll keep it short, the Buffalo Bills. You put him as a number 1 with Josh Allen. Now we're cooking with grease, baby. Now we can get after it. And Buffalo can rise as the best team in the AFC. That's where Davante needs to go. Go to Buffalo. Get the skis out. Get the snowshoes out, Davante. Come on now.
A lot of draft capital in Western New York or around the NFL next. What is the season outlook for the New England Patriots in year number 1 of a new era with rookie head coach Gerard Mayo? One of the guys you could rely on for this Pats team to provide that experience, to bring along this young roster, to try to even be competitive in football games. Their center, their captain, David Andrews. Bad news yesterday in Foxborough. He is expected to have surgery to repair a significant shoulder injury and will likely be placed on season-ending IR. David Andrews, DRS, now out for the remainder of this season. So what does it mean for a Patriots team that won its opening game of the year in shocking upset fashion in Cincy, that nobody expected, that closed as only a field goal underdog in its home opener week number 2 and forced overtime against Seattle, but since then, in weeks 3 and 4, has looked to be the team that entered the season with the worst win total around the National Football League of only 4.5. They got beat by the Jets on a short week Thursday night football game by 3 touchdowns. They got hammered by 3 scores last week in Santa Clara against the San Francisco 49ers. As the year's first double-digit dog, they did not come close to covering that spread. So what is next, DRS, for the Pats this season?
Yeah, probably just forfeit at this point. I mean, this is the least talented roster in the NFL that just got even more talent taken away from the roster. Having said that, watch out this weekend, Miami Dolphins, because you're not talented either at the most important position. But from a New England, isn't this what we thought? Like, they show up week number 1, like, oh, wow, look at this. Gerard Mayo's got the boys going in the right direction. They were hard-nosed in that game. They won it and pulled away. Game number 2, hey, they might be a little bit more competitive. Then the next 2 weeks, Ben, the bottom absolutely fell out on the New England Patriots, where they're terrible in offense, just like we thought they would be. They'll be terrible in offense the rest of this season, which brings up some other questions. But losing Andrews, when you know coming into a game, you have to control the football. You have to be dominant on the ground game. To lose that guy, that's a devastating loss to the Patriots.
Yeah, it really stinks. And moving the football on the ground has been an issue for New England the last few weekends. The guy they paid this offseason offensively was Ramondre Stevenson. and yet he has fumbled in each of the opening 4 games for the Patriots this season. So Gerard Mayo was speaking to reporters before practice yesterday and said it is definitely under consideration that Antonio Gibson, who has been a bright spot for New England, starts over Stevenson because of those ball security concerns. Does it matter? Ramondre Stevenson was good. We saw the game plan for New England the opening 2 weeks. Despite Stevenson coughing up the football, if they could play from in front and run it and have Jacoby Brissett throw it maybe 12 times a game, they would stay in games. The clock would run. They would grind it out. They would keep it more competitive. But since they started 0-1 against the spread, they have now not covered in 2 consecutive games. Again, New England is going to be an underdog in all 17 regular season games this year, we thought, except for Sunday at home inside Gillette Stadium, where they are currently a slight 1.5-point favorite against the Dolphins, which I think says more about Miami and Mike McDaniel than it does about New England.
It does. And also, Ramondre Stevenson is their best overall weapon. They better get it figured out quickly, because the one thing you can't blame a coach for is turnovers. When a quarterback can be as good as he wants to, but he's throwing 3 interceptions a game and getting strip sack fumbled, I don't care how good he is, he can't be your quarterback. Same thing with the running back. Boy, that is demoralizing, where you're going on a drive, you drop the football on the ground, or better yet, against San Francisco, drop the football on the ground after like the kickoff, which means the other team is already in the red zone at that point. I hope he gets it figured out, because putting him on the bench doesn't solve very many solutions for the New England Patriots trying to move the football.
So then, Donnie, the next question would be, as we look at the reserves and we look at the bench, when might, if we do ever this season, see Drake May start football games? The Patriots at home as a slight favorite on Sunday against the Dolphins. But after that, it's a home game against Houston, a London game against Jacksonville, a home game against the Jets to end out October, and then to start November, 2 consecutive road trips to Tennessee, to Chicago. If you're wondering when the bye week is for New England, it's not until the second Sunday of December to try to groove in the young rookie quarterback. When do we see Drake May, if at all, DRS?
You shouldn't see him at all. They're so bad, only bad tendencies will be able to build. And also, Drake May probably wishes he was back in college. He'd be redshirting and hitting the NIL transfer portal immediately at this point on this horrible, barren franchise right now called the New England Patriots. But I didn't like a lot what I saw even when he came in. He's a long way from playing, and they should not rush this kid. Their best chance, rebuild this team in the offseason, let him go with a full offseason, see what he can do. This is a lost cause this year with Drake May.
You saw the win total, just 5.5. Hour number 2 is up next. Welcome to hour number 2, live right here on this Thursday on the early line. A Thursday that begins week number 5 of this 2024 National Football League regular season. Our 4th short week Thursday night football game. All of them divisional duels, including tonight in the NFC South in Atlanta. It's the Falcons and the Buccaneers. We will preview Thursday night football a little bit later on in this second hour. We still have one wild card series to determine its outcome, with the 2 best words in the wild card round of the expanded postseason. Game 3 tonight in Milwaukee between the Brewers and the Mets. How about some NBA talk around the association, the return of the coach, James Young, JY, and, of course, the postseason in the WNBA. DRS, what a jam-packed second hour we got ahead.
It is. We got a lot to get to, which again includes still having the eye on the prize in Major League Baseball, trying to get to the next round here that's going to start this weekend. For me, I love it. And I always say, you make me commissioner, I'm going to make these times. And by the way, 7 o'clock start, fantastic. Not 9 o'clock, but also, can I get this point to you, Ben, because we didn't have a chance to talk about this. Playing games at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 8 o'clock. And the 8 o'clock game was on the West Coast. That's what we're supposed to do. It's genius here. Because if it was the NBA, you know what they would have did, Ben? 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 10 o'clock, where nobody would be able to watch any games at all on the late night shot here. Thank you, Major League Baseball. Afternoon baseball, yes, it's brilliant, it's perfect, and we watch it.
DRS, yesterday, of course, you know, is my Wednesday off day. I do all my prep and research for our beautiful Saturday show, College Football Today. A lot to know, a lot of notes to write down. I often go across the street to a local coffee shop. I'll sit there outside, start hammering out work, having a great time. I was there for about 2.5 hours yesterday, and then I remembered, oh, my God, it's 2:30. I got to get back and get in front of my TV to watch the Astros and the Tigers play some playoff baseball. So I revamped my schedule to make sure I was in front of the television for some afternoon baseball. It has been sensational the last 2 days. If we would have had multiple game threes, we would have had some afternoon baseball. Sadly, not the case. Does 2.5 hours of prep with some additional time still needed sound like a lot to you? You're not putting in the same legwork for PFT?
I don't know, man. I get it by osmosis. The more I sleep, the more information creeps into my brain, and the hot takes get charged up for the next day there. So 2.5 hours in the coffee shop, maybe I would make it 5 to 10 minutes at that point. Since I don't have caffeine, I wouldn't be at the coffee shop.
No
so
caffeine.
There you go. I'm already down one strike right there. Yeah.
You just be sniffing in the smells, man. Just take it in the air that you can. Never eating dinner again. The words of Donnie Rightside. All right, some new NFL news and trade reports and rumors kind of started by one guy. DRS, the memes go on and on. The guy from I Think You Should Leave, Tim Robinson, in the hot dog suit that he drives his hot dog car into the store. The meme that says, what are you going to do, stab me? Says the guy who got stabbed. All of this is Tyreek Hill bringing up the speculation, at least engaging in the internet rumors that maybe he would go back to Kansas City because of the struggles of Miami offensively and the injuries to the Chiefs offensively. Here was Tyreek Hill, 12:39 p.m. Eastern time yesterday afternoon. Woke up to trade news. Exciting. All right, that's you, Ty. That's what you did. And then following that, after practice, it goes through. He meets with the media at his locker. He did not hold a post-game press conference on Monday after the disappointing defeat against the Tennessee Titans, saying, quote, we've got a beautiful team here, and I want to be a part of it. It's just like so dumb because it's Tyreek Hill engaging in the internet rumors in engagement farming. DRS, they're not trading Tyreek Hill. They can't trade Tyreek Hill. They just restructured his deal before the year got underway. He's one of the 4 wide receivers making $30 million plus, maybe now 5, that CeeDee Lamb signed his new contract. It's just Tyreek Hill having a little fun, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, he did get paid a lot of money. So if you are a business, which the Miami Dolphins and the NFL are a business, understand Stephen Ross going like, let me get this straight. I just wrote a check for this guy for $30 million as a signing bonus. Then we're going to trade him after 4 games, and then we're going to have to cut more players because $40 million of dead cap hit will be accelerated immediately right onto our salary cap. Yeah, that's not happening here. Tyreek Hill is going to be in Miami, but I do understand the frustration of Tyreek Hill, and sometimes it does take a day or two to cool down. When you are a wide receiver, thought number one in the NFL is they want to get paid as much money as possible. That's what being a professional athlete is, and that is their right. But number two, they want to earn that paycheck because at the end of the season, they look at the standings, they hang out with their boys in the offseason, and when one wide receiver goes, caught 132 balls, 1,700 yards, and 16 touchdowns, hey, Reek, what'd you do? Yeah. I didn't even get 1,000 this year at this point. And it's not his fault because his quarterback play is so bad. So I understand after the game, you don't want to talk because you might be saying things you necessarily wouldn't say once you cool down. And even when he woke up, trying to have some fun on social media to get a trade. But that doesn't stop the idiots on Twitter and X from not understanding the trade. Like, yeah, perfect, man. He's going back to Kansas City. It can't work that way. It's not the NBA where it's like, you know what? If we trade a guy with $20 million, we'll give up a guy for $20 million, and it's a wash. No, that's not the way it works. You trade a guy, you had to pay the guy, and now you're going to take the dead cap hit. Just case in point here, Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. He would be a free agent at the end of the year. If he left and signed with, I don't know, the Arizona Cardinals, the Dallas Cowboys would still be on the hook for like $50 million in dead cap money. The NFL salary cap is completely different from any other sport. When you pay a guy a lot of money and you just paid him weeks ago, you can't move that guy. You can't.
Listen, the frustrations are understandable. This Miami offense is nothing that we thought it was going to be. In fact, it is the worst scoring offense in the National Football League. You know who Tyreek Hill should be engaging with? His head coach, because Mike McDaniel flat out has to be better. If he is boy genius, if he is the Wonderlic superstar, then go out there and prove it. He has not. And it's also on the Dolphins organization to know that there was injury history with Tua Tagovailoa, pay him, and not have a reliable backup, as I'm sure Donnie will share in just a minute. But to compare things for Tyreek Hill, since he joined Miami, he has been the leading receiver. He joined Miami at the start of 2022. He has been the leading receiver in the National Football League, I believe, yes, in 2022. And that's a big thing. Last year, he led the NFL in receiving yards. Through the opening month a season ago, DRS, Tyreek Hill, these were the numbers. He had games of 215 receiving yards, 157 receiving yards, 470 in total through the opening 4 weeks for the Fins in 4 touchdowns. He had a $130 week one with Tua Tagovailoa against Jacksonville in the comeback effort and a touchdown. Since then, it has been incredibly disappointing. Tyreek Hill numbers you would never expect to see. 40 yards or less. Has not found the end zone in all 3 games. What was the prop for Tyreek Hill on Monday? Well, his quarterback's number, Snoop Huntley, was around mid-160. His price was low 40s, low 50s. It was ridiculous. I drafted Tyreek Hill with my first pick in my fantasy league. I feel ridiculous. It's all bad. But the Dolphins still are not dealing him at this point of the season.
No, they're not. And also, like, I had included in a parlay, 50 combined rushing and receiving for Tyreek because I thought they'd hand the football off to him, and they did. He had like 16 yards of rushing, which should have been in the bag, but their quarterback is so bad. It's like having a Ferrari and no gas to put in it at this point, saying, like, why do we have these guys Waddle out there? Why do we have Tyreek Hill? Because we don't have a quarterback. And think about this, too. I know he can't have revisionist history, but if you watch that game on Monday night, it was embarrassing for Miami. And the funniest shot of the night was not Tyreek Hill on the sideline. It was Chris Greer looked like he was hiding in the back corner of the owner's suite with a hat on, hoping the cameras didn't see him because we knew he would have a lot of blame. You signed Odell Beckham in the offseason. Dude hasn't even basically showed up to the facility. What would happen if you signed a guy like Gardner Minshew where Tua goes down? We're not saying Gardner Minshew is going to carry you through to a Super Bowl or division championship, but I guarantee you, you would beat teams like the Tennessee Titans and you would beat teams like the New England Patriots, which now I don't think you're going to win this weekend. That is a shame because the one thing you have to account for in the NFL now is to get a solid backup quarterback, specifically if your quarterback has concussion issues. I can't believe they dropped the ball so bad that Huntley is their quarterback, and he is terrible.
When it rains, it pours as well. Jalen Phillips, the edge rusher for Miami, out for the remainder of this season. Week 5 of the 2024 NFL regular season kicks off tonight in Atlanta. It's the Falcons and the Buccaneers. Short week Thursday night football game for a 4th consecutive week here in the NFL. Each and every one has been a divisional duel. That continues tonight in this NFC South showdown between the Dirty Birds and the Bucs. 1.5-point spread, DRS. That is it. Tampa, 3-1. 3 consecutive divisional crowns in the NFC South. The Falcons squeaking by for a 26-24 victory last week, courtesy of Younghoe Koo. In the defense and special teams, the Falcons knock off the Saints at home last week for its 2nd win of the year, improving to 2-2, back to 500, despite not scoring an offensive touchdown. So a 1.5 spread in favor of the home team in Atlanta. 43.5 is the total. What is your expectation for the start of Week 5 tonight on this Thursday?
A lot of times we take a look at Thursday Night Football and figure that game's probably going under. You got 2 decent offenses here, but you never like to see, this one offensive team didn't score a touchdown the previous week. Now, if we date 2 weeks ago, the Denver Broncos came into Tampa Bay and it completely embarrassed that Tampa Bay offense, but they got untracked against the Philadelphia Eagles last week and did whatever they wanted to the Eagles. I do think we're in for a smoother game tonight. Anytime you have Baker Mayfield, don't you typically think the over because he's a gunslinger, which means he's going to make things happen with his wide receivers, but also can make things happen in the opposite direction with sacks and interceptions. The one thing I need to see is more explosiveness out of that offense for the Atlanta Falcons. And also keep in mind, like Bijan against the Philadelphia Eagles in primetime, he was good. He was electric. They ended up picking up the victory. But his past 2 weeks hasn't been all that electric here, particularly on the ground and quite frankly through the air as well. But the one guy that actually has seized a little bit of control in that backfield is running for a high yards per carry average. That's Tyler Algier. And if we're looking at these football teams coming in, you can run the football on both of these football teams. So that's where I'm trying to set up the angle. Usually it's me from a passing angle, but I'm trying to adjust to a running angle. Now, if you're doing that, that usually doesn't bode well for the over at 43.5 if you think that ground game is going to be under attack. But I think both running backs, the 2 tandems on each side, I think they're going to lead the way tonight. If I'm looking from a side perspective, you know me. I lean towards home teams on Thursday Night Football, down from 3 at the FanDuel Sportsbook to 1.5. I'm probably leaning towards Tampa Bay, but I'm not really a side guy at this point. I think there's much more opportunities tonight, Ben, that we'll get to with some of the prop markets.
DRS, to your point, both teams allowing more than 130 yards on the ground to start this year. The Bucs 131.5. Atlanta more than 145 yards, trying to slow down that run. Raheem Morris is a defensive guy, of course, now as the head coach. In the opening 2 weeks, just to your point on Bijan Robinson, it seemed as though he had been freed from Arthur Smith. At least 111 scrimmage yards in each of those opening 2 games. Did not find Pater. Found Pater Sunday Night Football against Kansas City, but in that game, he only had 52 scrimmage yards. Last week, just 7 carries. His first time with anything less than 14 carries so far this season, 28 yards. Did have 4 grabs for 46 yards, but it was interesting taking a step back. Kyle Pitts, who there was optimism for once again in the Zach Robinson Falcons offense led by Kirk Cousins, held without a catch a week ago. Atlanta DRS is 2-2 straight up this year, but just 1-3 against the spread. They have been an underdog in 2 of the 4 games. The only win and cover outright as the dog in comeback fashion, week 2 Monday night in Philadelphia. Last week, the first over for the Dirty Birds, a team that I have told you continuously I was going to circle because of expected higher scoring outputs with this offense led by Kirk Cousins. Their only over of the year has come in a game the offense did not score a single touchdown. Now, it's just a 1.5 spread, DRS, but I'd love your thoughts on this. Nobody has been a better underdog team than Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers since the start of last year. 2 of the 3 wins already this season for Tampa, outright as an underdog. Slight home dog last week against the Eagles. Big touchdown underdog week number 2 in Detroit. 11-4 against the spread as an underdog since the beginning of 2023, including a perfect 2-0 straight up and ATS record this year. If you look and you say, hey, it's just a 1.5 spread, it's -130, +110 on the money line. Tampa's still an outright winning record, DRS, as an underdog since the start of last season, 8-7 straight up.
It's interesting, too, because you would think the thought process behind that is Baker Mayfield, again, being a gunslinger, got 2 good wide receivers, they're pushing the football down the field, which they do. That usually would lean towards overs. But then you go back and take a look and say, all right, well, maybe the ultimate over game should have been the Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions this year, and that game stayed under. Now, granted, Detroit did have 7 red zone opportunities, only cashing in 1 of those for touchdowns, but the game did stay over, and that's what you look at from these betting circumstances. But for me, it's in a dome. We're not worried about any, outside interference. The only tough part, again, about a Thursday is guys are banged up here. Mike Evans got a little bit banged up in that Eagles game. They made sure Sterling Shepard's going to be up for this game. I think he had 50 yards receiving last week. So you have a nice trio of wide receivers if they get there healthy. Bijan Robinson also was on that injury report this week. And again, on a short work week, they're not full practices and a lot of times estimations of what that player would actually do. But he's free and clear off of the report. The one thing that is interesting to me is you now have sort of a 2-headed monster in Tampa Bay when the thought process in the past 2 years was, boy, if they can just get a running game and make it more explosive, that'll help their passing game out. If you take a look at through 4 games, usually it's going to be Rashad White, who had 41 carries to lead the team, opposed to Bucky Irvin's 35. But if you look at those yards, it's clear. 5.8 yards per carry for Bucky Irvin, only 2.8 for Rashad White. So the reason typically we're heading into this game going, okay, it's Rashad White, it's going to get the bulk of the carries and also the receptions out of the backfield. And for Atlanta, the same thing with Bijan Robinson. That's not the case anymore. You have some quality backup running backs that you can use throughout the game, which I do think is going to help. So for me, again, thinking about the running game a little bit more than the passing game, but to get back to your original point, it seems like an anomaly that the Bucs are an under team at this point when theoretically they should be nothing but overs.
Yeah, absolutely so, DRS. Over in week number 1 for the Buccaneers, over last week in the win against Philadelphia. They scored 37 at home against the Commanders, 33 last week against the Eagles. I believe they were home, though, against the Broncos, so it's not just a home team over and away team under, as they were away, of course, in Detroit. Won that game outright, but that was one of the highest totals of week number 2. It was north of 50. This is our 4th week, short week, Thursday night football game. We have seen the trend the last 2+ years in the NFL. Primetime games staying well under, and of course, on a short week Thursday night football game, you would expect that to continue. First 3 weeks this year, well under a total. Week 2 in Miami, Buffalo, and the Dolphins, 49.5 closing total, under 31-10, the victory for the Bills. All right, how about a total sub 40 week 3, Jets, Patriots? We weren't expecting much offense, 38.5. well under. Gang Green wins 24-3. Last week, total closing around 43 and a hook, 44 and a half between the Cowboys and the Giants. Might we see some points? Well under, 20-15. Dallas gets the win. It is interesting, DRS, because, again, I've been waiting for the Falcons to be that offensive juggernaut or at least show the offensive improvement with Kirk Cousins we might have expected. Has not really happened. We'll see 43 and a half, that number tonight. Now let's talk about these two teams and their season outlook. The Buccaneers have the best record in the NFC South. They've won the divisional crown 3 consecutive years, even last year with the first with Baker Mayfield. Tampa right now, though, second best price to win the NFC South, plus 195. The Falcons entered the year as the favorites, but it was a minus money price. Now it's plus 165 with Atlanta returning to an even 500 record. DRS. They have returned to the favored side in the NFC South.
But massive game tonight and this weekend. The reason why we put that, is there a lot of football to play? Yes, there is. Let's just say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Ben, go on the road and win. That moves them to 4-1 and already a victory over the Atlanta Falcons, which would drop them to 2-3. Forget about the Carolina Panthers. They're not going to challenge in this division. But if you are the New Orleans Saints, you know where they end up playing this weekend? At Arrowhead Stadium, which means they could drop to 2-3 as well, which would give the Buccaneers 2 games clear of anybody in that division. And that could be devastating. That's an early start to a team that says, you know what? Let's just not falter and play good football the rest of the way through. So right now, my optimism a little bit higher on the Buccaneers as opposed to the Falcons. But I told you before the season started, I thought the Falcons were the best team in this division. A win tonight would go a long way.
The player props and what it means for the outcome up next. Thursday night football, an NFC South showdown in the A between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. Let's start with the player prop conversation by focusing on the quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, the very touted offseason acquisition for Atlanta. Baker Mayfield continues to deliver for the Buccaneers. 244.5, the number for Mayfield. It is higher by about 16 yards, DRS, than that of Kirk. However, Cousins has gone over 228.5 with at least 230 passing yards in each of the past 3 games for the Falcons. How do you compare the quarterbacks entering Thursday night?
Yeah, I guess the hotter quarterback you would say technically for me would be Baker Mayfield, more willing to take some shots here. And you also take a look at coming into the season, Kirk Cousins. We thought he'd be healthy. There's rumors that he's not as healthy, but also you can't take a look at those statistics and say to yourself, you know what? It looks like he's completely healthy. 4 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, quite frankly, a turnover machine right now for Cousins. So I do put a little bit more faith in Baker Mayfield and would look towards that 244.5. But I'm not in love, again, as I said, Ben, with the passing game. And also, you know me. I'm one of the first people to jump in on either taking an alt touchdown prop for the quarterbacks at over 1 touchdown or even best bets like I do so many times on Pro Football Today on Sunday at going over 1.5 touchdown passes. I'm looking opposite, and the case in point would be here. Passing touchdowns for Tampa Bay's defense. Did you know they're number 1 in the NFL, allowing an average of 0.3 touchdown passes per game? Then you flip it over to Atlanta, Ben. They're 5th in the NFL at 0.8 passing touchdowns per game against them. So for me, it's really more about the ground attack, which is atypical of what I usually like to handicap. But tonight, the first time in a long time, I'm not in on quarterback props tonight. I'm just not.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult, I would say, DRS. And the 2 great games for Tampa this year, they're 2 overs, they're 2 victories at home, at least, against both the Commanders and the Eagles. Baker has been sensational. You see the stat line last week, 347, 2 touchdowns against the Birds. Also had a rushing score as well. I didn't know we had music or some sound behind that animation.
Pushing around file cabinets while I was on there. I was like, Ben, how disrespectful you are, Ben, doing that. Yeah.
Wow. That's what happens with a producer extraordinaire. Joe Frizo starts to click the buttons to bring the animations in. Wow. All right, we're bringing the juice. It does sound so like when that happened when we started talking the game. I thought something was happening like in your set behind you, a reshuffling of sorts. Good to know it is just the animations. If we can bring back hip hop and have Donnie maybe spin a beat, that really elevates this program above all else. But back to the point, 347, 3 total touchdowns, 2 passing scores last week for Baker. In the opening week against the Commanders, 24 of 30, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, also 21 on the ground. Baker has scored twice this year. DRS, he has 8 passing scores, which is second most in the National Football League, only behind the 11 of Sam Darnold. But that has come really in 2 games. Last week in the opening week. Even in the win in Detroit, he threw only a touchdown, did run one in. I remain a little bit skeptical to your point. Neither team bad defending the pass this year of betting the over 1.5 for Baker Mayfield. I would not bet the over 1.5 so far for Kirk Cousins, who has only gone over that once this season.
By the way, also, when we're talking about Baker Mayfield, who he has been running in some touchdowns here, I know he's not Taysom Hill, but Taysom Hill scored twice last week in the red zone for the New Orleans Saints. So quarterbacks running, and now you see Baker Mayfield saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to run that read option on the goal line like I did on fourth down and score a touchdown by running over Reed Blankenship. Maybe he can repeat that performance from a ground attack. Wouldn't that be something? Hey, I'm going to bet, another player to score on the ground from the running backs here for Tampa Bay, and then let alone Baker Mayfield's running in 2 touchdowns. That would be devastating. But again, running on the ground game for me is where I'm going to be tacking to tonight. And you can, I guess, as a quarterback, theoretically, run it in against the Atlanta Falcons.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it, DRS. I can already tell you what Joe Lisi's best bet is for this game. It's Baker Mayfield finding Pater at plus 750 because why not? So let's focus on the ground game. 2 compelling backfields. Bucky Irving, the rookie out of Oregon, is kind of taking the lead. He's Tampa's leading rusher in front of Rachaad White, as DRS was discussing earlier. Bijan Robinson, a great first 2 weeks, despite not finding Pater. But last week, less carries, less yards than Tyler Algier, who had 8 rush attempts. Only 8, but still 8 rush attempts to Robinson's 7 and 60 yards. How do you evaluate this ground game that will be your main focus for Thursday Night Football?
On the rushing yards, and I always try to say this, and sometimes I do outsmart myself, because when I look, I always love secondary options. You take the top wide receiver on a great team, let's just say Justin Jefferson, 82.5 yards, but then you can say, ooh, Addison's coming in at 38.5. I think he can pick up some of those scraps, only to find Justin Jefferson with 15 targets, 12 catches, $160, and 2 scores, and Addison didn't get into the game. So if we take a look at this one, Rachaad White is the lead dog. He has more carries on the season than Bucky Irving, but it's also one of those things where maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't know what they had in Bucky Irving coming into the season, now realizing he's a more explosive option here. So if you look at that 44.5, it's actually higher than Rachaad White's 34.5, because why? Bucky might take 1 carry, 25, 30 yards here with that explosiveness, and half the battle is already won. Now you're taking a look at Bijan Robinson, obviously the more explosive option here for the Atlanta Falcons, but over the past 2 weeks, that hasn't been the case. Algier has been fantastic, 5, 6, 7 carry. I see that 35.5. So if you said, Donnie, you have 1 play tonight to play on a running back in the yardage market, I'm probably taking Tyler Algier's 35.5 bent to the over. I think he can get into the 40s tonight.
It's a number that he has been over in each of the last 2 weeks, as we have seen a little bit in the downtick of Bijan Robinson's overall stat output. I'm going to go to the receiving game, DRS, and I still think you're getting a slight discount on Darnell Mooney. His number tonight, 45.5. We mentioned it. Kirk Cousins has thrown for at least 230. It hasn't been picture perfect each of the past 3 weeks, but when Kirk has gone over his passing yards prop with 230 yards, Darnell Mooney has had at least 56 in each of the last 3 games. Kyle Pitts, nada last week. Drake London has been okay. Darnell Mooney was one of the key offseason acquisitions that's kind of been that under-the-radar piece, over 45.5. I like that look.
And by the way, let's take a look at the tight end market. Hey, it's always going to be Kyle Pitts. No, it's not. Look at K-Dot in 28.5. Ben, did you check out his last 2 games? 7 for 47 and 6 for 52. K-Dot is your better tight end option tonight. How about that, Kyle Pitts?
3 targets for Pitts last week, 0 receptions. I'm sure that Tom Vecchio will have more to say in our 3rd hour. We continue here on the Early Line next. You know, they try to incentivize these short week Thursday night football games, not only for the viewing audience, but probably for the players to get up with some motivation. DRS, all 4 short week Thursday night football games so far in 2024, as we have again to kick off week number 5, have been divisional duels. It actually might piss off the players because they have to play on short rest in a game that will have then significance all year long. But that's what tonight is. A really huge NFC South showdown in Atlanta. The Falcons entered this season as the odds-on favorites in minus money to win the NFC South. All the offseason optimism with the addition of Kirk Cousins to capitalize on the offense has not happened just yet, despite the Falcons being 2-2 in a victory last week in a divisional game, squeaking past the New Orleans Saints, who after winning their first 2 games in impressive fashion have fallen back to 2-2. We know about the Panthers, 1-3 so far this year. This is the first divisional game for the Buccaneers, who have won the NFC South 3 consecutive years, 3 very different seasons. Great with Tom Brady in 2021. Bad with Tom Brady and a losing record, albeit a divisional crown in 2022. Last year, first year of Baker Mayfield, 3rd consecutive divisional crown. DRS, are we sleeping on Tampa a little bit? If the Buccaneers go on the road and win slightly as an underdog tonight in Atlanta, are the Buccaneers far and away the best team in the NFC South?
I've been sleeping on the Bucs for a couple of years now. Like post Tom Brady, it's like, I just don't think it's going to work out. And Baker Mayfield, and I just don't like the football team. And yet here they go winning a division last year and winning a playoff game. So again, I see them at 3-1 and say they're probably going to move to 4-1, and then they might get my respect. But as you see the odds market right now, it's still the Atlanta Falcons at plus 165. How could they be that way, Donnie? 3 wins for Tampa Bay, 2 wins for Atlanta. They should be the favorite. Well, obviously tonight they're going to play a football game, and the odds market says, even though it's a light favorite here at 1.5 points, it's the Atlanta Falcons. And if they win this game, they'll then hold the tiebreaker over the Buccaneers and be in first place. Overall, again, it's hard to change your metrics of what you looked at, because I told you I liked the Atlanta Falcons before the season started. They're 2-2. I'm not going to say I don't like them tonight as they are a favorite, because they can win this football game. But I just look at it from the opposite side. If the Buccaneers can go on the road and move to 4-1 and stay 2 games clear with that tie-breaking advantage of winning the first game against Atlanta, that's going to move the needle a lot. I don't know how much the needle is going to move with an Atlanta Falcons win tonight, because you're still trying to say, okay, now they're 3-2. The Buccaneers are 3-2. It's going to be close, but I tell you, it's going to move a lot if the Bucs win tonight. I'm having a tough time saying the Bucs are going to win, because theoretically for me, Thursday night road games are usually a detriment, not a positive for your franchise. So I do think Atlanta wins tonight, and they should be able to even it up here in that race tonight for the South.
So, DRS, 2 consecutive divisional games for the Buccaneers. This week, short week, Thursday night in Atlanta. Mini bye next week. They go to New Orleans to take on the Saints. In fact, the Bucs and the Falcons start October against each other, end October against each other. It will also be a slightly short week for Tampa. They play Sunday night football against the Ravens, or Monday night football against the Ravens, and then they will take on the Falcons at home the following week. 2 slightly short weeks for the Buccaneers. One is very much a short week against the Falcons in what could be their biggest competition to win the NFC South. The Panthers, although probably more competitive with Andy Dalton, are not going to be a great football team. So, Donnie, I want to ask you about the top 3 teams in the NFC South. All 3 of these teams have a slight minus money price to make the postseason. Falcons best price at minus 128, Buccaneers minus 115, New Orleans minus 108 to make the playoffs, minus 112 to miss the playoffs as of this moment. How many playoff teams will we see out of the NFC South, where, to my knowledge, I think we have only seen the divisional champ get in each of the last 3 years?
Well, and this is going to change, too, because now the reason I'm going to bring this up, like the Washington Commanders, I didn't think could make the playoffs. They look like they could be a playoff team at this point. I think the Dallas Cowboys will recover. Same thing with the Philadelphia Eagles. The reason I bring that up is that's 3 out of 1 division I think could possibly get in, which is going to hurt the other divisions. I think the Packers are good. The Lions are good. The Vikings are good. And then the Seattle Seahawks and the 49ers. You see where I'm going here? I think we get 1 team in, and the only team that gets in, Ben, wins the division, because they have to get into the playoffs. That's where I sit at about the quarter pole of the season if we're talking about the NFC South.
That has been the case since at least 2021. I checked 2020. We did have the Saints win the division and the Bucs, an 11-5 football team, get in. Of course, that is the year they won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. So again, if that is the case, and Donnie's not far off from that estimation, especially with how loaded, jam-packed, and crowded the NFC North has become, this even amplifies the importance of tonight in Atlanta. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Thursday Night Football? We'll do that when Hour 3 starts next. Live right here on the early line, we welcome you our 3rd and final hour on this Thursday. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. What a Thursday we have. We were hoping for some more day baseball, but there's only one Game 3 in the wild card round tonight. It's in Milwaukee between the Brewers and the Mets. The decisive winner-take-all Game 3, where one team will be going home for the winter. The other will advance to the National League Division Series in a series set against the Philadelphia Phillies. Our MLB insider, Craig Mish, joins us next. Donnie will give you his full baseball breakdown in this half hour, and then our focus, Thursday Night Football. Week number 5 kicks off tonight in Atlanta, a battle between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. A lot of importance for the NFC South tonight. You'll have the proper perspective with Tom Vecchio. Our best bets to end out this third and final hour. All of that DRS up until 11 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, we got a big hour number 3 coming up. Multiple sports to hit here. You people want the information. We are going to deliver that information. I can't wait to watch the Mets game play out tonight because it's from a fan perspective for me, being a Phillies fan, Ben, I'll say this. I would love to play the New York Mets in the next round to knock them out. But at the same time, I would love to laugh at said Mets if they didn't even make it to play the Philadelphia Phillies in this round coming up. So it's almost like a win-win proposition at this point right now. But I sort of am, from baseball perspective, you got the East Coast, West Coast matchups, Phillies and Mets, barn burner ratings. Same thing out on the West Coast with the Padres and the Dodgers. Baseball needs that. I think it'll be fantastic for the sport, though.
I thought you were going to slander what we have in the ALDS. I'm proud of you for your restraint.
Is there even American League? Why do we even play? I don't know.
So, I mean, Donnie's worst nightmare to see 3 American League Central teams into the American League Division Series round. He absolutely hates it after slandering every organization, every ownership group in that division all year long. We weren't together yesterday. We weren't together on Tuesday after the Monday doubleheader to end out the regular season. But as we predicted on Monday, and you were spot on, nobody else involved with this show even gets the claim they were close to correct, that we were going to see a split between the Mets and the Braves, which led to Atlanta and New York. A couple of players getting together on the field as they popped the champagne. Both teams, after the doubleheader, dapping up, being like, hey, congrats, man, great season. Way to get to the playoffs. Some questioned how deep the rivalries actually run in the NL East. What was your thought on that, Donnie?
Repeat the question again? What was my thought? What? I mean, what are we doing here?
What were you listening to?
I wasn't listening to anything. I was actually just teeing up the next part of the segment. I was like, he's not going to throw it back to me. So I got no idea what you even just asked me. And it was one of those where I'm great at spinning wheels, but I don't even know where I was supposed to spin my wheels to at this point right now. Something about baseball and say, yeah, man, love my Phillies. And I think Bryce Harper should be the MVP. Is that the right answer?
In a way, yes, it was about baseball. I was asking you because you mentioned the divisional rivalry that would be the Phillies and the Mets. And on one hand, you want to slander the Mets to not make it. On the other hand, you would love to play them, to send them packing yourself. And my voice is cracked because I'm having too much fun. But then I said, DRS, because we weren't together on Tuesday and Wednesday, as you correctly predicted, there was a split in the doubleheader on Monday, which led to the Braves and the Mets celebrating together slightly on the field in Atlanta. Some then even questioned how deep rivalries run in the NL East. I wanted your take on that ahead of what could be a potential division rivalry in the division series.
Yeah, now it matters because I heard the whole thought process, too, coming into that Monday doubleheader was basically saying to ourselves, all right, don't they hate the other team? They want to knock them out? Like, no, they could care less. They're already in the playoffs. They don't give a damn about the other team and expending more resources in game number 2. That's why we thought it was going to happen with being a split. Now, moving forward, yes, you want to talk, like the Phillies will be excited to play the Brewers and the fans are like, yes. But I'm telling you right now, in that Phillies clubhouse and that Mets clubhouse, if they line up on Saturday and it's the Mets and the Phillies, there is going to be hatred, anger, people getting thrown out, excessive celebrations, fans being angry in the stands. It's a must-need. Same thing out there with the Padres and the Dodgers. Those two fan bases, when the Dodgers fans try to invade Petco here, and the same thing with the Mets fans try to come down and invade Red October, the passion will be absolutely tremendous in the National League. Now the rivalries matter. It doesn't matter when both teams are looking to get to the playoffs. That's a handshake agreement. Hey, man, see you in the playoffs. See you when I see you.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you heard the question, you understood the premise, and you delivered a very apt response. A divisional rivalry tonight, a divisional showdown in the NFC South in Atlanta between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. We had to hear from the people. What is the best bet for Thursday Night Football? We find out now in Fade the Public. DRS, to tidy up the reaction so far in the overall record for the public, we asked, hey, pick the doubleheader winner on Monday night. Most of the public said the Titans, check. And in the second game, why am I blanking? Oh, it was, Seattle and Detroit. Detroit, check. So they got that one correct. The public is 4-3 through the 7 standalone primetime games. You're saying the public is near 500. Who would have guessed? Beautiful. What is the best bet for TNF tonight? Is it the Falcons as a slight home favorite? The Bucs as the slight road underdog? Over 43.5, under 43.5. Most of the public, almost overwhelmingly in this case, going with Tampa as the road dog. Nearly 42% of the vote. DRS, you fading the public?
I am going to fade the public tonight because I went with the Falcons at -1.5, which is only about 21% of the votes coming in, with the Buccaneers at the +1.5 or at 41.7%. It's going to be a close game. We're not asking, hey, 14.5-point spread. You're basically picking the winner tonight, and I'm going to lead on the home team on a Thursday night. So for me, I am, Ben, fading the public today.
Yeah, I know you're looking at that home team short week Thursday night football game. Everything tells me the Buccaneers are actually the better team than Atlanta. The Buccaneers have been incredible as an underdog. Hey, if it's a 1.5 spread and you don't want to use 11-4 ATS since the start of last year, okay, I get it. How about 8-7 straight up, including both games as an underdog this year, winning outright against Detroit and Philadelphia just a week ago? But it just feels like a Falcons night to squeak out an ugly short week Thursday night football game. I am interested by the points, DRS. Again, I have said this so many times leading up to the season in the opening month, looking at the Falcons to be a high-scoring offensive unit. They have not. They were one of 8 teams entering week 4 under in all 3 games. Their only over of the season came last week against New Orleans without registering a single offensive touchdown. More of the public, DRS, like in the over 43.5 at 22% than the under of 43.5. That's the least selected option at 15%.
Yeah, usually everybody's always going to vote those unders, the least amount here, 43.5. And it's not a high number. Maybe the thing would have changed if it was 51.5. Like, ooh, I don't think they can get to that number, but that's usually seen. But also, what about the atmosphere tonight down there in the Mercedes-Benz Dome? You saw last week, Georgia getting beat on a Saturday night. Tough scene. Atlanta Braves now knocked out of the playoffs for good. Is this going to be a morgue and a funeral tonight if Atlanta loses on Thursday Night Football? Something to keep an eye on down there. They need a little bit of pep in their step, and maybe the Atlanta Falcons can give it back to them.
Yeah, they need something after a tough ending to the season for the Braves, a tough overall year for the Braves in this one. Now they turn their attention to the Falcons before the Hawks. I think the Atlanta Dream actually fired their WNBA head coach last night, too. It has not been a great sporting time in Atlanta. We'll talk a ton of props with Tom Vecchio when we start our second half hour here in this final hour. And I don't know if you heard this yesterday anywhere, DRS, but today begins 55 consecutive days of football, at least a college football or NFL game starting today, October 3rd, all the way through Wednesday, November 27th, 2024. It's the day before Thanksgiving. That does not have football, so it's all the way through November 26th, 2024.